The fact of the matter is you don't have control over your circumstances. Things will happen to you, and that's just life. Person or be the reason why you continue to work. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action despite fear, because if I wasn't scared, I wouldn't be courageous. In that quest or a thing of just trying to make everyone happy, I found myself miserable. People don't realize that their friends' outlooks on life is so important because it rubs off on you. Welcome back to the Passionate Show, guys. Okay, so this one's going to be a little bit more different. What I'm going to do now is go through a series of my Twitter, and we're going to have a lovely friend on the back ask me all the tweets and all that stuff in the middle.
Life. 80% your fault, 20% what you do about it.
Wow. So I think when I was thinking about that, it was more or less to allude to the fact that a lot of times we blame everyone else but ourselves. And the fact of the matter is you don't have control over your circumstances. Things will happen to you, and that's just life. And when I say life is 80% this and 20% that, it kind of follows the 80-20 rule, right? And what glorifies that is basically says that 80% of life is just life just hitting you at all things possible. But 20% is what you do about it. It says how you, that 20% is so valuable that whatever you do to the things that have been given to you is so important, so crucial, but not many people actually think about that.
We often confuse accountability with self-loathing, causing us to spiral into a pit. Accountability is taking charge of the situation you put yourself in. Self-loathing is lying there, beating yourself up over it.
That's a good one. So with that one, I think the beauty in that, I'd say, is that self-loathing is that blah, blah, blah. A lot of times we like to blame ourselves for our own actions because that's what it is, right? We just talked about it's a beautiful segue to the 20%, 80% thing. Is 20% our fault. So where people get confused is that in their triumph for accountability, they often just self-loathe. They all just keep telling themselves, oh, life is just like this. That's just what it is. Like, I'm taking accountability of my life and it's just ass. Like, there's nothing I can do about it. Like, I can't do much about it. Like, that's just what it is. Like, this is my life. And that's what happens to them, right? So that 80% of just what it hits them and 20% what you do about it. Some people feel that the fact that they admit that it's because of them, it's still a good thing. It's like, at least you know what you're doing is fucked up and you're doing something wrong. But no one does anything else about it. Because that changed from accountability to self-loathing. Because accountability, you kind of do something about it after. Like, okay, well, this is because of this, this is because of this. Let me realize why this was. Let me realize why this is because I didn't do this and I didn't speak the way I did. Or it's like, I didn't learn this fast enough. I can take accountability and realize this was my fault, my problem. Self-loathing is like, oh, shit, I did this. Well, now where do I go from here? Let me just go into my pit. Let me just keep blaming myself for everything that's wrong with everything, like the world. Right. And I think it's very hard on someone's mental health as well. Like, it doesn't really matter if you're a guy or a girl. It's like when you keep telling yourself that everything's your fault, you kind of you become miserable. You become very miserable. And you kind of like live in this like misery and like this depression and everything, realizing that everything's my fault. I can't do anything about it. But everything is your fault. You have all the control of what you're going to do about it. Right.
So you said, grateful for all the things that God has given me and thankful for the things that He has kept away from me. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So with that one, I think that was more towards the fact that we often have prayers and they go unanswered, per se. Like, we feel like they go unanswered because it wasn't given to us. And it takes a lot of, like, say, accountability or just even like a reflection of, was that the right thing for me at that certain time? Was like, say you wanted a girlfriend or you wanted a girl or you wanted this or you wanted your wife and everything that we always talk about, your nasib. But you, in that summer afternoon or that summer night, praying for that one thing, was that actually what was best for you? If that was given to you, would you be able to handle that? You know? A lot of things, like even like say with money. So if I was actually given all that money at that particular time, how would I have handled it? Would I went into haram? That's religion, but like, would I have done something stupid with that money? So I'm grateful for the fact that there's a lot of things that I wasn't given yet, and there's probably a reason for that I don't know about. Often when we look back in our past when something bad happens, we're like, oh my God, because of that bad thing, like that's what got me to here today. But when we look at the present and something bad happens, we don't have that same outlook of, oh my God, okay, this is meant to be, this something's gonna happen, something's good gonna happen. But when we look at the past, because we feel like, oh, we're successful now, or we have some type of success, like, oh, I'm glad I failed in this thing because now that brought me to here, right? I'm glad I didn't take this test and I switched my majors, even though it felt like it was the worst thing possible, and now I'm over here. It does take a while to get to that point, but I think that's like the most important thing to look at, right? So it's like you have to be grateful for that failure. You have to be grateful for not getting that degree, grateful for that not getting that money in that particular time where you felt like you wanted it or you needed it.
That's fair. What is your why?
So I kind of caveat from or piggyback from a different quote I also did about why you do the things that you do. And it's very important because like something I asked like the people on my show, like, hey, what are you passionate about? What's your why? What makes you do the things you want to do? It's very important because everyone has their own motivators, right? And even when you do feel like, let's say money is a big one for a lot of people, but then you don't realize it's not really money that people are chasing. It's more status. Like people want to do these things for all these particular reasons. It's because they want to be known for something, right? We crave that, right? Some people do it for love. Some people do it everyone has their own thing, right? Some people want to feel better about themselves, but it's masked by 10 different other things, right? It might be, I want money because people might think fancy cars, but it's like, no, I want to provide for my family. That's why you want money. I want to do this for my family. I want to be able to be this person for this person. That's why I want this to go. Right? It's really important to understand why you do the things you do because then you actually have a lot more clear route in your head of why I'm doing this, where it's going to take me, what's the benefits of this, and things like that. And when we don't have a well-defined why, we often find ourselves lost. We don't know what we're doing. We feel like we're just existing, right? And that's the same thing kind of goes into your mental health. A lot of times we feel like we need to read the right books, we need to write these things. I think the cure for mental health would be just accountability and as well as understanding yourself in a deeper level. Right? That reflection will actually help you a lot more than anything else in life because then you notice like, okay, this is why this is happening. This is why this is going to happen. This is why I feel like this. And instead of validating your feelings every 24/7, understand where they're coming from and what you can do about it if you think it's negative to change it.
You choose podcasting as your thing to do to get to your why. You said there were so many routes you could have gone down. Why did you choose podcasting as one of them?
So my whole thing was when I started the podcast and why I started everything was when I was younger or I was even throughout life, I've always had really good conversations with people. Like that was kind of like my knack. Like I was really good at it. I was always good to like being able to like network and in the sense of like maybe not for a job or whatever, it more for just life and advice and very open to that, like a sponge, like soaking up everything. And I felt like there was so much value to be given from this. I'd love to make a platform. Now the why of why I actually want to do podcasting with the thing is I wanted to be known for something, right? There's status was part of it. And there's also to inspire, right? All these things when people come and talk to me about certain things like life and things like that, and they always leave the conversation like, wow, like I was really like, at least that's what I hope, that they feel a lot better about themselves or they feel like they got a new perspective. So my whole thing is like, you get to inspire so many people with this platform. You have an audience, you have a reach, you learn to talk to people, you learn to network in front of a camera, all these things you get to do. And at the same time, you do what you love, which is talking, like I'm a blabbermouth, and you yapper, and you get to still inspire everyone around you. So for me, it was like a win-win. So that's why I started that.
Who is your biggest inspiration?
I think me in 5 years, I think when I look back at my past and everything that I had to go through, that my family, whatever, it's always that self-belief in myself that you will make something out of yourself. You will do this, you will do that. Even though I know it's very far from where I am, but I know I'm also far from where I started, right? So it's like, okay, well, I want to be here, right? But at one point I was over here, but now I'm here. But this would be great for this part. I know that as time goes on, like if you have the right mindset, you're going to continue to grow, right? So I was like, okay, if that's my mindset, that I have just undeniable faith in myself that me 5 years ago was talking about me 5 years from now, that I'm going to do something great, right? And if I keep having, like Matthew McConaughey said, like him in 10 years, whatever, it's like when you keep having that faith in yourself that in 5 years I'm going to be like this, in 10 years I'm going to be like this, you're always working towards something and it's always getting better, right? Because I know for myself, from me 5 years from now versus me now, it's going to be hell in heaven. Like I have so many expectations on him. And the only way he can meet up to his expectations is if I do something now. So I'm also not just putting my belief in something random. It's like, okay, I believe in myself and then I'm going to take accountability because I'm going to be the one to get myself there, right? And that's more for in this desire. But in a bigger picture, of course, there's like I wouldn't have anything without Allah and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and all that type of stuff, right? So that also has to be part of it because a lot of times when you talk like this, people's ego gets involved, saying like, oh, like this is very egotistical of you, this is very self-righteous of you, and all these things. But when you realize that it's like you've been given such a beautiful opportunity, and it's from God itself and Himself, and you want to be able to do it the most, and with the power of Him, you get to achieve that.
So you tweeted, "Be your biggest motivator." Would you say that you yourself are your biggest motivator?
I think motivation is one way to put it, but there's also discipline. So a lot of times we can go through TikTok and stuff and be like, okay, well, I find motivation through there. Or a lot of times like, oh, my family motivates me, my girl motivates me to work harder and things like that. But when it comes to be your own biggest motivator, it's kind of be like, be the person or be the reason why you continue to work, right? Because motivation gets you to work. at the end of the day, or gets you to do the gym, gets you to do all that. At the end of the day, if everything was taken away from you and you needed to do the certain tasks that you need to do, it's all on you. There's no one else here. There's no one else going to be there. It's all on you. So be your biggest motivator. Be the one who smiles in the mirror when everyone else thinks you're stupid, when everyone else thinks you're delusional. Be that person who's like, no, I'm going to do this. And having that undeniable, just fucking delusion almost, the fact that it's like, I'm going to be this person. I'm going to be great. I'm going to be all these things. I'm going to motivate myself. It motivates you because you're like, you know what? Regardless of what everyone says, I have belief in myself that I'm going to be in that position, right? So it's kind of like what helps me get that motivation from. So I'm saying me in 5 years is inspiration of mine because it's like, I know it's like I'm my biggest motivator. I need to get to that part.
Courage is not the absence of fear. It's action despite fear.
That's my favorite quote. Hands down, my favorite quote. And I think there's so much to unpack with that. I spoke to this public speaking coach and he said that there's no such thing as not being nervous. You'll always be nervous. And what's how the answer is callousness and I just keep on doing it. And I told him the same quote and he said that was a great way to put it because you're always going to be nervous. You're always going to be scared. There's no just perfect outcome where you're just going to do it, right? Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action despite fear because if I wasn't scared, I wouldn't be courageous, right? If I didn't have this negative, it wouldn't be a positive. And that's the perfect yin and yang of life, right? It's almost like a double-edged sword. It's like you need to have this shitter, like this shit thing, and then you need to have this really good thing. And it makes you so much more powerful. And you're only as powerful as bad as your negative, your yang was, or yang, whatever the fuck, right? That's why it's so sick. It's like if I wasn't, say a person talking on stage, right? One is someone who's done countless presentations and he still has a little bit of like stage anxiety, but whatever, versus a person, same stage, but he's never spoken in his life and he's the biggest introvert. What's more courageous? The guy who's done it all the time, the guy who's never done it at all, right? Because that fear, right? There's such a high amount of fear. There's so much on this side, right? And it's so heavy that you have to put that much courage on this side to make it happen. Right? And everyone, I'm just using public speaking, but just in life, talking to that girl, doing this, doing that, it's, you have like the courage is in you and the fears will also be inside of you. You just choose what wins between the two.
Jumping off of that quote, you recently bought your first domain.
Yeah.
How did you feel when you registered your first domain?
So I did my first domain with the Posh Nightclub. And it was fun. It was cool. I think it's one of those not relationships. It was one of those feelings where it just felt so like right, and it felt so exciting because there's like, oh my god, like it's like you're opening a door, right? And it's like your dream life almost, or like this endless opportunity, and it just you open it, and it's just a vast sea of everything, and just like, you know, like it's just like a huge like ray of sun in your face, and there's so much happening. And that was like the first step for me, was buying the domain, registering or whatever. And that was the biggest thing for me. And I think that was kind of like such a mind-opening moment and mind-blowing moment, sorry, of like so much just happened, you know?
If you're friends with everyone, you're an enemy to yourself.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that one. When you're friends with everyone, you're an enemy to yourself. I've said that so, that's one of the courage, like my second quote from the top 5 quotes, 100%. So when I used to look back at my life and a lot of things, I really used to be a people pleaser, right? It was one thing I always need to look at other people's expectations and be like trying to meet theirs. And in that quest or a thing of just trying to make everyone happy, I found myself miserable, right? And I was like so worried about the other person's thought on me that it made me feel so much more shittier, right? Then I realized I was like, yo, like if he had a bad thought on me versus the thoughts that are going through my own head about myself right now, how negative they are, like, who's going to win, right? Am I going to let this random person, like, it's making it worse than it would actually feel. So what I mean by that is if someone says something to me about, like, something I did and he just doesn't fucking like me or he doesn't like me, thinks I'm a terrible person, at the past, it used to be, like, I don't want him to think about that, so I'm going to be, like, any way to please him, right? This person that I'm holding up with such high standards. And then I'm like, wow, like, I'm doing all that to please him, but I'm actually so miserable. And I'm far more miserable right now than I would be if I actually just cut the person off or whatever it was. So boundaries or healthy boundaries, I'd say, is very important in your life, and understanding that not everyone has to be your friend. It's not necessary. Not everyone's going to like you, right? There's going to be a person who likes Marvel, there's going to be a person that hates it. You're going to stop liking one thing because of someone else? No, right? Have those boundaries. Having those boundaries in your life does not make your life any worse. It makes it that much better, right? You get to be more confident in yourself and realize that you don't put up with certain shit, right? Not everyone has to be your best friend. That's okay. And sometimes a lot of people have to be like, I need to have friends. I need to do this. You don't. A lot of people are scared to be alone. And I think that's what really impacted me growing up. It was the fear of loneliness that really got me to this point, or got me to a really low point, because I kept telling myself that I wasn't comfortable by myself. I wasn't be able to do this. I wasn't able to have fun. I always required someone else to have fun. And the biggest shift for me was forcing myself in the time of solitude, or just by like loneliness, or sometimes life would put that in front of me. And during those moments, I feel like I grew the most because I learned to enjoy my own company. And that almost makes you bulletproof, in the sense of like, you have this bulletproof mindset. You don't put up with a lot of things, because you know that for a fact that you can always just go back and be like, you know what, I'm fine with or without you. Would that be a toxic partner? A lot of people are afraid to leave them. Why? Because they're rather put up with this like mediocreness, and like, just like, she's toxic, yeah, she's this, but you know, she still kind of loves me, and we still kind of have this mediocre sex life, so it's okay, like, I'll continue this relationship. I've had so many friends like that, right? And that's the only reason why they continue with certain relationships, because they're rather that than be lonely. But if they took the hard route and just been a little lonely for a little bit more years, you can then find yourself with the love of your life, right? Or like, in that aspect, or like, you'd be so many things will come in front of you. Just understanding like when to do what, and being able to say no to someone and just be alone. Not everyone has to be your friend. You don't need to have 30,000 friends. You don't need any of that. What you need is to be able to be comfortable in your own skin, to the point where if someone did come into your life, they'd be complimenting it, right? They'd be an addition to it, but not, they wouldn't be negative.
A smooth sea never made a strong sailor.
I like that one. So a lot of times we ask for courage, we ask for this, we ask for all these perfect, like, amazing things, attributes that make a great human, right? But we don't realize, to get to that point, there's a lot of shit you need to go through, right? And that's like the storm that I like to talk about. And a smooth sea's never made a strong sailor. It goes to show that, bro, you talk about wanting to be this person, you talk about doing all these things, but this particular person has probably gone through it. That's why he is this person, or he's strong enough to go through it again, or to go through it for the first time. Most people aren't strong enough to do that, but they want to be this person, right? So it's kind of like, a lot of people, me included, we operate in this weird realm of like, I'm a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I want to do this, I don't want to do that. And we're just lost. And it takes kind of fine tuning. We complicate it when I say we're lost. It's like, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Versus reality of life is it's a yes or no question, right? Like zeros and ones. That's how, you know how we talk about the whole computer language. Everything's just a 0 and 1. That's life. 0 and 1. Yes or no. And most people get into this little realm of, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. This is why I don't want to do this. This is why I don't want to do that. And it's as easy as, this is what it is. This is what it is. And if I want this, I need to do this. That's how simple it is, right? If I want to be this person who's okay with all these things, I should be able to, and comfortable with going through the shit. I should be able to be like, okay, well, fuck. Okay, here's this, here's that. Yeah, like, that's ass. Like, let me go through it. Like, I'm not going to be scared. I'm going to go through it. I'm going to go through this, understand this, deal with this person, find out what's good, find out what's bad. It's important. It's life.
I really like this one. The more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know. It doesn't matter how much you think you know, it's how much you think you can know.
So a scholarly one, right? Yeah. So at first it's like an unconscious competence, and then a conscious incompetence, almost, to put in like a little smarty pants words. It's when you start something, you feel like you're like, know a little bit more about it. Like, you start podcasting, you know that you can talk to people, right? When you start, you're okay with talking to people. How hard can it be? But then once you start, you realize there's so many more things into it. There's things like how to say segues, how to talk clearly, coherently, not mumble, don't do this, don't do that. There's a lot of things you need to learn. And then the same thing with business. Same thing, where I apply with business. It's like, okay, well, I thought it was only this. Well, now I have to do this. I have to manage this. I have to do this. There's so many tasks that come in front of you once you start. And then you kind of realize, it's like, okay, well, shit, if I want to be great, I need to learn. And it's not how much I've learned, it's how much I can learn, because there's probably so much more out there, because I just don't know so much. A lot of times, even with a lot of things I'm already so passionate about, people might think I'm an expert in. I know that there's so many things I don't know about, like, say, fitness, right? But posing, macros, the calories, all these things, I feel like more than the most average person about. Yeah, I have some knowledge about it, but there's still so much I don't know. And I can admit that, because I know there's so much more I can learn. But a lot of people will be like, well, they stop really early, saying, well, I know a little bit about this, I know a little bit about that. I can stop early. Don't stop learning.
Your life is always moving in the direction of your strongest thought.
Amazing. So what I mean by that, when you think negative things happen around you. When you think positive things happen around you. It's like when there was like a Tony Robbins skit or whatever of like, close your eyes, or, rephrase that. There was like Tony Robbins who said this one thing. It's like, okay, look around you. Tell me everything that's black. Everyone says, okay, all these things, they start coming out. And then he's like, okay, now tell me everything that was blue. And then he's like, well, I don't know, because you were looking for a certain thing. A lot of times when our thought is negative, we look for negative things in our life. When your thought's positive, you look for all the positive things. I've had people tell me that, wow, you're always so positive, your life must be perfect. Well, there's been times where it's been pretty shitty, but I don't talk about it and I'll let that consume me, right? You're allowed to feel pain, you're allowed to have these negative thoughts. It's okay, but just don't let it consume you and let the whole good will always win. Let that happen to your life. Let your positive thoughts and the thoughts that you want to be a better person, be that person, do this thing, talk to this person, talk like this, and how you want to be that your driving thoughts. Be the striving to success is like your thought. Like you want to be better every single day of your life. Not that this is what's wrong with me. I didn't do this today. I didn't do that today. Don't do that, because that's gonna get you nowhere. It's gonna keep you going sink. You're gonna go lower and lower and lower until you realize that it's like you're just drowning in your own self-pity, your self-loathing almost, and it's just like you just hate yourself for it, and you just become such a negative person. It consumes you. It becomes your personality. People don't like to hang around you anymore because people are like just reminded of how sad life is. And some people may not even realize how important it is for the people around you, and people don't realize that other people's outlooks are so important. Let me rephrase that. People don't realize that their friends' outlooks on life is so important because it rubs off on you. There's been periods of my life where I've hung around with more, you can say, toxic, more negative people, right? Maybe good people to me, but they're very negative. And I've realized how maybe for me and my purpose in their life from God was to be that positive light, to help them out in life. And then I also realized that some people, it's like, as much as you try to help them, like they can only help themselves, right? You only help someone as much as they want to help themselves. And when I left, I found my life a lot better because I'm like, wow, like I feel happier. Why? Because I've lost this anchor in my life. It's sad to say, but sometimes you got to choose yourself. So it's okay to choose yourself. There's nothing wrong about it. Don't let other people tell you that the fact that you chose yourself and you should stuck with that person is your fault. You may have thought that was the best thing to do. And if your life has drastically increased for the better after you cut that person off or you did that one thing, bro, you made the right decision, right? You still wish good on them, let them do the thing, but you did the right thing and you're allowed to feel proud of yourself for that.
You talk about how terrible self-loathing and all of this stuff is, but do you think self-loathing contributes to accountability in some aspects or no?
I do think they go hand in hand. Yeah, so you need to have... See, when I talk about these negative things and you should just don't go anywhere near it, it's like you're right and you shouldn't, but at the same time, there's a lot of other aspects of it. It's a lot more complicated than that, right? I say it and it might be easier to think. It's you to have a little bit of everything, right? And sometimes it takes you to be self-loathing to get yourself on accountability, right? Sometimes it takes you going so far down to help you get back up, right? And when it goes to self-loathing and accountability, sometimes you have to ask yourself, like, if everything is my fault, what can I do about it? Now loathing becomes accountability, right? You need to go through a lot of shit. You need to go in the storm almost, right? Like you need to go through it just to understand that, like, okay, there's so much to do. There's so much of what's happening. What can I do? As soon as you ask yourself that one question, then is you start picking up, okay, well, if this was all my fault, why? You start asking yourself that. And you kind of go, and then it spirals into your own thoughts. And that's why I talk about, like, periods of isolations are so important, because it's hard to do that when you have, like, everyone around you and you're just trying to be in your head. And it's weird and you just look edgy, right? But sometimes disconnecting from everyone altogether for like a period of week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is for you, and start asking these questions, asking yourself all these things, reading these books of self-development or whatever it is for you that you're struggling with, is so important, because then you met with all these questions, and you're also met with a lot of answers. So there's a benefit of that. Okay, guys, that being said, that probably wraps that up. If you guys like this, leave a like and comment, and we'll probably continue this more with more people. But yeah, it's been Posh Night.